I turned around, the shadow, this big pun with a bat in his hand. And a bat looked like a toothpick. When they seen Pun, the whole block said, oh,
There are street stories, and then there are legends. Moments so intense, so unforgettable that everyone who witnessed them swears it changed how they looked at a man forever. For Big Pun, one of those moments happened before he even held a mic, before the world ever heard him rhyme. It happened on a block in Yonkers. Fat Joe remembers it vividly.
He jumped out the car, he 500 pounds with a bat, when they was already on the floor.
A night where the air turned heavy, where an entire neighborhood felt the ground shift. 1 second, it was just another confrontation. The next, a 500-pound Punisher stepping out of a car holding a bat so massive it should have looked like a weapon, but in his hands, it looked like a toothpick. The crowd didn't need bars or records to tell them who Pun was. His presence alone told the story. That was the day the block hit the floor. The day people realized Big Pun wasn't just a funny, charismatic giant from the Bronx. He was dangerous. And anyone standing in his way, whether it was a rival, a random on the block, or even a DJ who played the wrong record, could find themselves facing the Punisher in real life. Tonight, we're diving into those stories. From the Yonkers mayhem to the time DJ Who Kid was lured into a van at gunpoint, to a nightclub brawl so wild people swore Pun smashed a bottle over Jay-Z's head. Some of these tales were caught on tape, others live in whispers and scars. But they all share one truth: Big Pun commanded fear. And once you hear these stories, you'll understand exactly why.
There's a lot of guys who took smacks to the face out there that y'all call the biggest legends in the world, that they wearing it well.
Before we even get to Yonkers, Fat Joe makes one thing clear. These aren't fairy tales. He admits he might exaggerate the numbers, but the bones of the stories, they're all real. And when he says some of the biggest legends in the world once took smacks to the face, he's not joking. Some of the people hip-hop worships today, they still carry scars from back then. That sets the stage for what came next. A trip to Yonkers, one of those missions where there's no talking, no negotiating. You show up, handle business, and leave. And this time, Big Pun was riding shotgun.
You know, I had to go to Yonkers one time. You
heard the scrap.
Oh, you heard that? You heard I threw the whole block on the floor. Don't you hear that? The whole block on the floor.
Fat Joe describes it like a movie scene. He arrives in Yonkers, confronts his target, and suddenly the whole block collapses. Not metaphorically, literally. Dozens of people forced down onto the concrete as Raul and the rest of Joe's crew flashed what they had tucked under their jackets. A whole neighborhood instantly neutralized. Meanwhile, Joe zeroes in on his man. He's punishing him, throwing hands, making sure the lesson sticks. But this wasn't some weak dude who folded after one punch. This guy had fight in him. He tried to slip away, climbing up a wall like a cornered animal trying to escape. That's when the night shifted from wild to legendary.
I turned around, the shadow, this big pun with a bat in his hand. And he jumped out the car, he 500 pounds with a bat, when they was already on the floor. When they seen Pun,
Fat Joe turns his head, and there it is. Big Pun stepping out of the shadows. Not the rapper, not the platinum-selling artist. This was Pun before the music. Pun from the Bronx streets, 500 pounds of raw power holding a bat like it was a twig. The effect was instant. People who were already face down on the pavement pressed themselves even lower. Onlookers gasped, and the guy trying to climb the fence, his escape ended right there. Because Pun swung that bat with the kind of force that could crush bones. He hit the man so hard he went flying over to the other side. Joe says it straight. Pun didn't need lyrics or fame to command respect. He just needed to step out of a car. That night in Yonkers, the block learned that when Big Pun arrived, fear followed.
they know the truth. They know the truth.
Even Fat Joe admits this was just one of thousands of stories. 10,000 in his words. But the Yonkers incident stands out because it was a turning point. Pun wasn't a star yet. He wasn't a household name. He was just another Bronx kid with size, presence, and a willingness to go further than most. But after that night, people started whispering. They started telling each other about the big guy with the bat who made a whole block fold. That's how reputation spread in New York. Not through press releases or radio spins, but through the fear that followed you home. And as wild as Yonkers was, it was just the beginning, because a few years later, Pun would prove he wasn't afraid to bring that same energy into the music business itself. Even DJs weren't safe. If Yonkers was the night Pun's reputation exploded in the streets, the DJ Whoo Kid story was the night he showed the music industry he could blur the line between business and the block. This wasn't a bar fight or a random beef. This was a calculated move to protect respect. Late 90s, New York mixtape culture is booming. DJs hold serious power. They control which records get heard, which beefs get amplified, and which crews look weak. Whoo Kid, on the come up, hosted a tape that carried a Sauce Money diss towards Big Pun. What felt like just another record to him was something else entirely to Pun, because when Pun heard that song, he didn't just hear a diss, he heard a problem. Respect in New York was fragile, and Pun knew it. According to Whoo Kid, Pun told him flat out, "This record right here has the Latin Kings laughing at me." That line tells you everything. The Latin Kings weren't just listeners. They were one of the biggest gangs in the city. If they were clowning Pun, that meant his entire credibility was slipping. And for someone like him, losing respect in the streets was more dangerous than any rap battle. So Pun set a trap. Whoo Kid was invited to Harlem, promised a quick $1,000 payday at the Apollo. For a young DJ, that was easy money. But when he showed up, there was no promoter. Instead, there was a van. Inside the van, Big Pun and several armed men. Whoo Kid stepped in, expecting cash, and instead found himself staring down gun barrels. This wasn't bluster. Pun and his crew pressed Whoo Kid hard. They didn't beat him, didn't shoot him, they didn't have to. The intimidation alone did the job. Whoo Kid later admitted, "What I've learned is that Big Pun was the real gangster out of the whole Terror Squad. There's a reason why their name was Terror Squad." Pun laid it out. Hosting that diss track made him look weak, and he couldn't afford weakness. He explained it, made sure Whoo Kid understood the stakes, then let him go. The DJ walked away physically unharmed, but mentally shaken. Because unlike a lot of rappers, Pun wasn't bluffing. He was willing to kidnap a DJ just to protect his reputation. And the word spread fast. DJs knew. Play the wrong record, and you might end up in the van with the Punisher. The story didn't end there. Whoo Kid claimed Pun even stormed into Rockefeller's offices afterwards, carrying that same energy straight into enemy territory. He wasn't just defending himself. He was showing the entire industry what could happen if anyone made him look soft. In hip-hop, there are warnings. Then, there are examples. The Yonkers story was an example. The Whoo Kid incident was another. Both prove the same point. Pun's respect wasn't negotiable. And if you think pulling DJs into vans was wild, imagine what happened when Terror Squad and Rockefeller crossed paths in public, under club lights, with bottles flying. That was the night the streets thought Pun even cracked Jay-Z's head open. By the late 90s, the tension between Terror Squad and Rockefeller wasn't just about music. It was about pride, presence, and territory. New York was a chessboard, and when crews crossed paths, it didn't take much for things to explode. One of the most infamous nights came at Club Carbon in Manhattan. For years, the story has been twisted into legend. You've probably heard the rumor. Big Pun smashed a bottle over Jay-Z's head in a nightclub fight. It's one of those tales that sounds so raw, so believable, that people repeated it until it became gospel. But the truth, as told by those who were there, is just as wild. Cuban Link, Pun's close friend and Terror Squad member, cleared it up years later. People got it twisted. Jay-Z wasn't even there. That time, it was Memphis Bleek. According to Cuban, it all started in the VIP section. Bleek, Jay-Z's protege, was lit, amped up, and feeling bold. Out of nowhere, he cracked a bottle over a Terror Squad member's head. Just like that, the air shifted. Blood in the VIP meant war. Pun, Fat Joe, Cuban, and the crew snapped into action. Chairs flipped, bottles flew, fists connected, and then the chase began. As Cuban remembers it, we started chasing the whole Rockefeller. Some of them got hit with bottles. They got chased out. The idea of Rockefeller, the hottest crew in New York, being literally run out of a club by Pun and Terror Squad, that was unthinkable. But that's exactly what happened. The brawl was so intense, it didn't just stay in the streets. It leaked into the music. Not long after, Big Pun dropped 100% with the line, "Dumb the party all drunk, must have been Puerto Rican rum, tried to snuff Joe." Fans and insiders knew exactly what he was referencing. The dumb was Memphis Bleek. The punch thrown at Joe was the spark. And the result was an all-out club riot that ended with Rockefeller scrambling. That lyric kept the story alive, and it's why people started twisting it. Before long, the rumor mutated. It wasn't Bleek who swung the bottle, it was Jay-Z getting hit. And here's the crazy part. People believed it because Pun's reputation was so vicious, so over the top, that the idea of him smashing Jay-Z in the head didn't sound like fiction. It sounded like Pun. That's what made Pun different. His legend outgrew the truth. The bottle fight at Club Carbon proved he wasn't just feared on blocks in Yonkers or back alleys in the Bronx. He was feared in New York's elite spaces, in the same clubs where the industry's biggest stars mingled. And once again, it showed that Pun didn't separate the streets from the industry. If you disrespected Terror Squad, you weren't just facing diss tracks, you were facing men who lived up to their name. But here's the thing, Yonkers, Who Kid, Club Carbon, those were just the stories that leaked out. Fat Joe always hinted there were countless others. Times where Pun smacked legends. Times where entire blocks bent to his will. Times that never made headlines but lived in whispers. And that's where the real fear lived, in the stories nobody could fully confirm, but everybody believed.
There's a lot of guys who took smacks to the face out there that y'all call the biggest legends in the world, that they wearing it well.
Fat Joe wasn't exaggerating when he said legends carried Pun's handprints on their faces. He meant it. People who went on to become icons of hip-hop had already felt Pun's wrath back when he was just a Bronx kid making his name. That's how his reputation spread. Not through press releases or magazine covers, but through bruises, fear, and the quiet respect of people who'd been checked. At 5'7" and nearly 500 pounds, Pun wasn't just another man in the room. He was a presence. When he stepped out of a car, when he lifted a bat, when he raised his voice, entire crowds reacted. A weapon that looked deadly in anyone else's hands looked small in his. And that was the point. Big Pun's size, his intensity, and his willingness to go all the way turned him into a walking warning.
They know the truth. They know the truth. Like that.
Fat Joe insists the stories were endless. 10,000, he said. And if you were in the Bronx in the 90s, you probably heard at least a few. One day it was a block in Yonkers. Another, it was a DJ thrown into a van. Another, it was a nightclub emptied by flying bottles. And that's just the ones people talk about. The rest, they live in whispers. Tales that never reached the magazines, never got confirmed, but shaped the way Pun's name carried through the streets. People didn't need proof. They believed. Because every story they did hear sounded too wild to be made up. Yet every story lined up with who Pun was. That's what made him dangerous. Not just the actions themselves, but the legend that grew around them. A legend everyone respected, whether they wanted to or not. But here's the other side. Pun wasn't just fear. He was charm, charisma, and genius on the mic. That duality is what made him magnetic. He could be the funniest guy in the room one minute and the scariest the next. It's why the name Terror Squad wasn't just branding. It was truth. They brought terror to the streets, and Pun was the centerpiece of that energy. The Yonkers night captured it best. Before the albums, before the plaques, before the platinum, there was Pun, stepping out of a car with a bat, making an entire block drop to the floor. That was the archetype, the proof that the Punisher wasn't invented in the studio. He was forged in the Bronx, tested in Yonkers, and feared everywhere his name traveled. Big Pun's legacy lives in two worlds. In the booth, he was a lyrical giant, the first Latino rapper to go platinum, a poet of the Bronx. But outside the booth, he was the Punisher, the man who made blocks collapse, who pulled DJs into vans, who left entire crews scrambling in nightclubs. The Yonkers story wasn't just one night, it was a warning. It was the day everyone realized Big Pun was dangerous. And for those who saw it up close, they never forgot. Because Pun wasn't just a rapper, he was a force. And forces don't ask for respect, they take it.